What's going on, everybody? What's happening? That's it, man. Listen, it is graduation time. I mean, like, all right, so did y'all do a thing for the seniors where y'all celebrated seniors?
Man, there's so many kids now that are spread. Evolution, I say kids, I shouldn't say it, students.
Yeah.
The evolution of education is now, if you're a youth pastor, you got homeschool students, you got private school students, you got Christian school students, you got public school students. You got dual enrollment students. Like, you got a junior in high school who's a junior in college.
Yeah.
Like, that's a new challenge for student
That
pastors.
is so true,
so
man.
I feel like youth pastors need to have, like, 5 different graduation things for students because they have so many different types of educations or students being educated, so many paradigms that they're speaking into. So we did have one though.
Yeah. That's a good point. It sounds like a podcast topic that needs to. But no, I didn't even think about that until you said it. That is true, man. Just the different paradigm shift of, just modern day education, our culture and society, and what that looks like and the implications of it, bro. And so
and homeschooling.
Oh man,
right now this new kind of form of homeschooling, since COVID certainly, and who knows, will it keep picking up steam? I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of culture war stuff happening for a lot of reasons, some very good reasons.
Yep.
Parents that are shifting to a homeschool or virtual school model.
Yeah.
And that home education is obviously I'm a fan of it. We do it with our kids because we live 30 minutes from civilization. So there's a lot of reasons, but that's a big one. And I but there is something about that that is increasing. Like I saw more homeschoolers walk across the stage this year at that graduation service at our church. And so there is more of that. You see that trend on a nationwide level. So who knows, Jeff, man? Who knows what's going to happen, what it'll look like in 5 or 10 years.
Absolutely, man.
But I think that education will continue to evolve. That's the one thing we can know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think it's important for us to say that because as we, look to inform a generation of leaders and just looking at what's upon the horizon, that's something that we really do need to pay attention to.
And I think that's going to happen even right now. We're seeing it at the high school level, but I think it's going to happen more at the college level. Bro. I think you're going to see college a la carte.
Yeah.
And by that I mean somebody's not a student just at that school, or if they are, they're only paying for the classes they take, but they're a la carting their education. Because I think that people going to a traditional 4-year school and paying the one fee for everything and the room and the board and the food and the it's just not affordable for as many people as it used to be, or maybe education's just gotten so expensive for whatever reason. And God forbid that so many of these universities at some point might not get as much government subsidy. I don't know. I don't want to get this show, I don't get a label slapped on this episode. Yeah. But for a lot of reasons, it could reach a tipping point.
Yeah, I think so, man. And so that is the evolution. Quo and I, we were just talking about this, like, man, all right, Cameron is finishing up. Next year is his last year at University of Florida. And so, we were like, man, but if he were to stay, a few more years, or if he was starting his freshman year of college, it would be completely different and stuff. And so, and even the same with our kids as they have matriculated through high school and college, as we as parents reflect right now, knowing, hey, we don't have them, but we'll have grandchildren coming. Man, we have said, my wife and I, we have said, if we were parenting elementary and middle school and high school age children today, the way we did it in the past, we would definitely do it differently today. I mean, there's a lot of things
and a lot of students are using their college. They're doing that a la carte thing. They're just getting the classes. They're getting their college degree, and they're saving. I know my daughter's doing this. She's saving her money for grad school. So she's getting her undergrad. She's kind of combining it between several different schools, and then she'll finish out her senior year at one school to get the diploma. And then, but what she's doing is she's banking cash along the way. so that she can put more of that revenue towards her master's degree.
Yeah.
Well, for her, it's vet school, so it's not called a master's degree. But for most people, would be that next stage would be a master's degree.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of that happening too. Like, hey, if I'm going to spend the money, where should I do it? Here or when I get to the specialized portion,
brother,
of what I'm going to actually go be adulting and working in? And I think there's some wisdom to that. I think
man,
are very wise. They're doing that.
We won't chase the rabbit trail, but I'm just telling you, as a person, I am so grateful for my undergrad education at Morehouse College. However, I did have 3 scholarships to other colleges and universities that I turned down because I wanted to attend, one
historic place.
Yes,
yeah, man.
And the mystique of it and all that stuff. But I'll never forget my dad looking at me and telling me, "Boy, math is math, no matter where you go."
He ain't wrong.
He ain't wrong. He ain't wrong.
And it is cool to say you went to Morehouse.
It is, yeah.
Like
but
my wife graduated from Harvard. It's cool that she went to Harvard.
But
I didn't.
Yeah.
Like you guys went to really cool schools, but they were kind of like pushing me out the door at my little college.
But if you talk to Chris about it, she's like, okay, it's cool, And but I say that to say, honestly, I think if I had to do it all over again, man, honestly, I would have preferred to invest in experiences that give you access to that history. 1,000,
as opposed to spending this 4-year
1,000%. I could have still had the access to the history.
That's a good word.
Without being on campus.
So in other words, what you're saying is somebody should just go through SLU.
Oh, 1,000%.
They can go to school wherever they want. They're going to get the history if they go through SLU. We're going to go to all those church history places, world history places, art history places. That's all you got to do. Just go through SLU. For a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for your undergrad education. I'm telling you. I didn't know we were going to get there, but we did. Hey, well, we're talking about young leaders. Talking about a younger generation. Younger generation, young leaders. And, man, we have gone over the last couple of episodes, Brent, through an incredible journey, if you will, on some of the what we call the 7 most common leadership struggles, and I don't know about you, but for me, it's been really, really cool to go through this conversation because I think for myself, I could say, man, I've seen some of my blind spots in some of these places, and I hope, ladies and gentlemen, this conversation has been just as fruitful for you as it has been for us. But man, we've gone through 6 thus far. Yeah, so we're concluding today. We're concluding today on number 7. So last week we talked about the older leader. So I think it is appropriate that we end our time talking about the younger leader, not just because of the people that we do life with and minister to as far as our students through the SLU journey, but there's, Brent, a lot of young leaders that are leading very successful student ministries that are our listeners right now. So just like there's challenges for an older leader, there's a unique set of challenges for a younger leader. Yeah. And just as with anything, as with any type of leader we've talked about, it doesn't mean that that's your crutch. It doesn't mean that disqualifies you. Right. Whether you're the higgledy-piggledy leader, the older leader, the younger leader. But what we're saying is there are challenges with being this type of a leader. Yeah. And so with the younger leader, there's some very unique challenges. To be quite honest with you, there's some unique challenges on the forefront of our on the front doorstep, I should say, of younger leaders now, Gen Z and younger. They're calling it Gen Alpha the next one. I don't know. It'll probably get a cooler name somewhere. But that you and I did not face, and that even, say, somebody in our office who's, we have people work for us who are fresh out of college, year 2, 3 years out of college. So there are students facing different challenges than even they face. Yeah. I think that, there's a lot of people are talking about Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. Such a great book. What Haidt has done, and if you don't know who Haidt is, he's a sociologist who has written studied quite extensively on the impact that social media is having on a young mind. Yeah. And he's concluded, and scientifically, I think, proven, it's valid data and information and conclusion, that we've robbed a generation of their childhood. Yeah. And so the Anxious Generation, I think it came out like a couple months ago. Oh yeah, it's a new book. Yeah, great read. But it really confirmed some of the fears and trends that we were seeing happening and the impact of some of this stuff. Yeah. So I would say if you were to take all of the the different technologies and issues. And by the way, when I was a kid, there was a there was a social justice challenge maybe every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And it really captivated our consciousness. And we really had to decide how to care about that. Or what, like when I was in the 5th grade when the Rodney King beating happened, and then the riots then occurred.
The LA riots.
And in that moment, and that was a huge thing.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that captivated the news for a year.
Yeah, it was.
And the reality is, I remember going to school one day, and just because of, like, my black friends didn't want anything to do with it. And it was so weird to me. I was like, and I hadn't seen the news, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I remember Nick, my best friend in the 5th grade, he was a black guy, but I was like, hey buddy, what's up? And he said, what do you want, white boy? And I was like,
wow. Yeah.
Who's the white boy? I know I'm white, but I didn't know it was a white boy. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
And then he goes, you don't know what's happening. And I'm home that day. I found out, and it was very sad. But that now we have that about every other day, Jeff. Can you imagine a student growing up, and every other day they're told, this is the biggest crisis you face. Our culture. You better choose sides right now. I mean, just the sheer rate that's and I think it goes back to that we're not supposed to know everything.
Absolutely.
Human beings aren't supposed to know everything that's going on. We can't handle it. But it's just, I can't imagine the impact all that stuff we've mentioned in health.
Man.
And this unique set of challenges. So you have 3 questions.
Yes.
That every younger leader should ask themselves.
Absolutely.
So that no matter whether it's a technology and social media or social justice outrage, or you got to take a decision on this protest or that, or whether it's just whatever it is, we got to ask these 3 questions.
So,
what's that?
Well, I think the purpose of these questions is because whoever asks the question drives the conversation, right? And so it's important that as a leader, we're asking the right questions, not just to, as we talked about, those older leaders, if you're asking an older leader to mentor you, but we're asking the right questions of ourselves. What are some questions as a young leader we need to ask? And so the first question simply, Brent, this isn't one of those, it shouldn't be a Captain Obvious, but for some they say, okay, that's good, but do I have a healthy approach to leading? That's the first question. Do I have a healthy approach to leading? And this is really all about the heart. Is there a purity of heart? Or is there this
purity of motive?
Purity motives, what's your heart like? Because I think depending on the purity of heart, it really speaks to your motives, right? Or vice versa, and so I think it's so important that we understand that we have, this shepherd's heart when we're thinking about leading a generation, but also leading ourselves. I think, you can't lead others, as Drucker talks about it to you first, learn how to lead yourself, manage yourself, manage your own time. And so this idea of how is my heart and what's guiding my heart. And the truth of the matter is when we think about this pure heart, the pure heart really speaks to, that shepherd's heart. Do we have the ability to lead? And do we have not a perfect heart where we're a perfect being, but are we perfectly connected to our Heavenly Father as far as, saying, God, speak to me, purify my heart so that I can leave in a healthy way. And when I have a pure heart, Brent, there's some intentionality to my leadership, and I think that it's so important. And we can see a lot of this in David's life, because David was a person who, had this seen as this healthy, pure relationship with God and had this servant, this servant's heart, this servant mindset. And I think, keep in mind, David wasn't the one that was to be king, and so I think it starts, Brent, here first and foremost with asking the question, do I have a healthy approach to leading? And basically, we're asking, how is our heart?
Yeah, as I calibrate my heart will determine the effectiveness and health of my leadership. And so I think there's kind of 4 areas that we've got to focus on if we're gonna calibrate our heart in the right way, in the right direction. I think we got to make sure we have a healthy view of people.
Yeah.
In other words, people are not just objects you use or resources for you
Yep.
to use to get a job done in your leadership journey. So we got to have a right view of people. Mm-hmm. We got to have a right ability to solve problems.
Yes.
We have to know the provisions that are needed. Every leader needs resources to get a job done, to get a goal done, to get a vision accomplished. So you got to have a right view of provision.
Yep.
And then you got to have the right protection. Every leader will have to know how to defend what they have been entrusted.
Yeah.
And so I think that this what does health look like? If someone were looking for 4 categories, I think that those 4 categories could serve us well when asking the question, am I healthy in my leadership?
Yeah. And I think that's important. I love those 4 categories, talking people, problem, provision, and protection. I think really categorizing our motives, our hearts, asking ourselves, are we really setting ourselves on a proper course? And I would love to kind of stay on that word intentionality. I think it's important that as we're asking this question, we have to be honest and intentional with ourselves. Like, hey, man, we want the Lord to create in us a clean heart, and so I think it's important that we start by first asking that question: do I have a healthy approach?
Yep. Question number 2.
Question number 2 is, am I content in the journey? Now, so if the first question is about the heart, I think this question is about the mind. What is our mindset? And as leaders, how is our mind? I love what the Harvard Business Review defines a leader's mindset is this. He says, mindsets are leaders' mental lenses that dictate the information that they take in and use it to make sense of and navigate the situations they encounter. Simply, mindset drives what a leader do and why. What a leader does, and why. And so when we think about the mindset, it's the lens that mind, you have the mind of Christ. We think of that through the lens of Scripture. It really dictates and determines, how we navigate through life. Yeah. And so I think that first question, that second question, am I content where I am?
Yeah.
Do I have the mind to say, God, I know that you have me exactly where you want me to be. Yeah. And there's a level of contentment that I have, knowing that, hey, man, maybe I'm not on the biggest of stage. Maybe I don't have the largest of youth ministries or whatever, but God, I know this is exactly where you would have me. And when there's a spirit of contentment, Brent, and our minds are very content with where we are on the journey, it kills a spirit of comparison. Yeah. It causes us to be what I love to say, we're aces in our places. We're staying in our lane, and we're maximizing our influence and our effectiveness because mentally we understand, God, this is where you have me to be.
Yeah, I think maybe another way of saying that is your focus will determine your contentment. Paul said that we should think on things that are above in the heavenly places.
Yeah.
If focus determines my formation, and my view of God determines everything about me, then my ability to focus on the desired will of God will inevitably determine my contentment in the leadership journey.
Yeah, that's so good.
And
so good.
What most people focus on, Jeff, is all the problems. Their problems, other people's problems, the drama around them. Can I tell you what that leads to? A very unhealthy mindset. But if you focus on what does God want? The desired will of God. If focus determines our formation, and if our view of God determines everything about us, then our focus on the desired will of God will inevitably lead us to a healthy mindset.
So good. That's so good, man. And when our mindsets aren't right, Brent, the contentment will forever be out of reach.
Out of our reach,
we'll never be able to obtain it.
Life,
Well, all right. So number 3. Yeah. So we talked about the heart. We talked about the mind. Number 3 is simply this: what am I allowing to capture my imagination? And when I think about this question, what am I really, am I guarding my heart and my mind in such a way that now I am not only just seeing things through the lens of Scripture, but, I'm listening to the things of God and not the things that I see that are trending on social media. And when we think about, we're visual creatures, many of us, and, all of us actually, we see things visually, we take it in. Man, what am I allowing to capture my imagination? I think it's important that as leaders, especially now more than ever in this world that we live in, that we have to be very intentional about how we guard our ear gates and our eye gates. We got to be careful what we watch, what we feed our spirits, what we listen to, because those things that we allow to penetrate our hearts and our soul, they will take over our imagination.
Yeah. So maybe another way of understanding that is that there's a lot of things that are competing for my attention and interest.
Yeah.
And
it's a land of plenty.
I would say there's more competing for a person's attention now than any other time in history. And so there's more coming at you now than any other time. And so your ability, and maybe even another way of saying it is your discipline to feel.
That's a good way of putting it.
Field out the distractions.
Yeah.
And to only give your attention to what matters.
Yeah.
Will inevitably determine what captures your imagination, because what you give your attention to will capture your imagination.
Yeah.
Another way of saying capture your imagination is it'll become almost like an all-encompassing thing, a vision. I don't want to say obsession, but you know what I mean. It gets you. It grips you.
Yeah.
What captures your imagination
what grips you. Right.
Our pastor said this a couple weeks ago. He said the mission of God should grip the people of God. What he was saying is that the mission of God should grip your imagination and should kind of bleed into everything that you do.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's good. I like that.
So what we're saying is, like, whatever you give your attention to will capture your imagination. Grip you. Make sure that you're gripped by things that are going to move the needle in your leadership. Yes. God's wants for God's world.
Yeah. And man, I love that, because, whatever we feed will grow.
Yep.
And I think, again, man, we just live in a world, and we've talked about this several times. We'll continue to talk about, a lot of the challenges ethically that we see that we're facing in our culture and society, and how the goalpost has been moved and people are compromising the integrity of Scripture and all that stuff. And so we have to be very careful not to allow those unethical, unhealthy, immoral things to grip our minds and our imaginations.
So there's 3 questions that every younger leader should ask.
Yes, sir.
Will you restate those questions for us? Because I think it's important that as we land the plane on this, that if you're taking notes, if you're listening as you're going down the road, you want to type this into your notes portion on your phone real quick. And you go, okay, I just needed those 3 questions, guys. Give them to me before you sign off. What 3 questions should every younger leader ask? So
number 1, do I have a healthy approach to leadership? That's the first one. Number 2, am I content in the journey? And then number 3 is so important that we ask, what am I allowing to capture my imagination? And so those are the 3 questions that we're asking. It's so important that we think every young leader needs to ask themselves as they're on their leadership journey. Heart, mind, attention. There it is, there. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out with us again this week. I hope that you've enjoyed this 7-part series, the 7 challenges that every leader faces, or the 7 most common challenges in the 7 that every leader will face. And so you're going to find something probably in every one of these discussions. Absolutely. I hope if it's beneficial to you, this might be the type of discussion series to go through with a group of friends who care about their influence. And after each one, have a discussion over a cup of coffee or something. In any case, we're so grateful. Thanks for hanging out with us. Until we meet again, wander well and shine like stars. Take care, guys.